Going live in 5, 4, 3, 2, jabba jabba dabba dabba do. We're live, finally.
All right. Sorry, ladies and gents. We actually were fixing out some kinks. Apparently, the capture card didn't want to work for 10 minutes, or by 10 minutes, I mean 2 hours.
Like, we restarted the computer, and that's how we got
it
to
worked.
work. It is so hot in here right now. Holy smokes.
Make sure you drink some water, or as I like to call it, your moonshine.
I got my moonshine right here, you know, nice H2O that we're pretending is being transmuted into moonshine right before our eyes here, because it's all about the magic here. Yeah, so
it's all about the magic.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yes, it did, Nova. It did that the last time. Like, it did that the last time, too, by the way. If you guys would just, like, imagine for a minute that my tripod is literally one of those little dinner tables. Like, it's one of those dinner tables. And it's got a little office drawer set. And then it's got 2 Nintendo Classics. And then it's got quarters. And then the actual GoPro 3-way tripod with the GoPro sitting on top with a surge protector mounted on the side. So we made it work. Welcome to our new studio here in my apartment, basically, because I had to move it this week. But it's moved. We have the Black Lotus. We have dope candle.
Less glare.
Less glare.
Moonshine.
Moonshine. Nice. Okay. And the microphone isn't exactly getting in the way of the whiteboard entirely, but, you know, that's what we're trying to do. Can anyone... Can we, like, hear me? I think so. Cool.
Can anyone hear me?
Yeah. Well, you know what? If they can't hear me, I'm okay with that. So... Let's
just let's mime a stream out. I reckon that'd be pretty fun. Although it's going to be pretty hard for me to mime without a camera, but you know, we've got to do what we got to do.
Well,
I'll do it on a
Jab. This audience for almost a year has been like very used to visualizing you, and you know, so it was Philip DeFranco coming.
You know what? We should. We should do a competition of like people drawing me, and whoever gets closest wins.
That would be awesome. Let's do that.
Yeah.
All right, Jab. So let's get in our Gundams right now and see this all the way through.
Right.
So we're gonna start with the. All right, actually, let's remind the audience of the platform here, or the hashtag format. So. Since we have like Patreon now, Platinum members get first dibs on questions. Okay, then we have Silver members; they get second dibs, and then we have the YouTube Super Chat because we're very coin operated. Jab's new coin slot has been working great. I think we're gonna start upgrading that with a tattoo with credit card information. You know, specifically located.
I know exactly of the slot.
Yeah.
Yep, there we go.
Yep. And then after that, Discord Q&A questions. And then if we have time, we'll get to YouTube chat questions. That is the format for us tonight, which we will be doing. And don't worry, I literally ordered an actual tripod, so it's not going to be as cancerous as it has been. So we'll figure that out.
A literal tripod.
Yes, a literal, actual tripod. Yes, thank you, Vexsol, for your suggestion on that. And
not a metaphoric or a metaphysical one, a literal one.
A literal one. Yes, an actual tripod. Now, the lighting in here is terrible, but you know what? When you're living in an expensive one-bedroom apartment in the Bay Area, California, it's really hard to get square footage around here. So I'm doing my best with what I got. And also, like, my apartment's one of the very few of them that actually have air conditioning. So I kind of, like, lucked out on this one. So it's pretty nice. Of course, anyone who lives in the Bay Area would argue that you don't need it. So anyway, let's get the show on the road, Jeb. What's the first platinum question for this evening?
Oh, yes, with the Platinum Q&A, I'm guessing we've got Mr. Periani again. He gave us a nice infographic, which you'll be bringing up on your screen shortly.
Is that his first question? There isn't any other questions he asked? Is that literally his first question?
Yeah.
Or his only
okay. Yeah, that's the last question. So let's go with the ones before that. Yeah, who cares? So let's, for both Chase and Jab, what questions about type you want to find the answers to? So what questions to type do we not know that we want to find the answers to?
Oh, wow. I would say for me, being able to predict types of children, or at least quadras of children, as a result of the pairing of their parents, and filtered out by birth order. That would probably be my thing. Of course, if that happens, then obviously the whole world's going to start developing mental eugenics programs and potentially identifying quadras that could threaten the system, and then subtly making those children disappear. Because why not live in a society where certain forms of cognition are filtered out in order to keep the masses under control? I mean, if I was someone who was secretly running the world from a totalitarian mindset, that's what I would do, right?
Right.
So.
Well, I mean, like we've even seen it in the question and answer question. How can I cause my son to go towards this side of their quadra in their development?
I know.
That's child abuse?
It's like literally, hey, we're just going to customize our children, And I'm like, okay, people are already doing that. I have at it, I guess, if it's legal, but I don't even know if it's legal. And that's way over my head right now because I'm not going to argue morals about that because, I don't have any. Because I have ethics. I'm very ethical, and I don't know exactly how ethical it is. I'd have to actually research that to have an opinion on it, but I don't. Although my third most favorite film of all time is Gattaca. I don't know if you've ever seen that, Jab, but that's just always what I imagine happening. Okay, so Gattaca is this film with Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke. It is the ultimate introverted intuition film other than Bradley Cooper's Limitless. And if you're an I user, which means introverted intuition is your top 4 functions, you have got to watch Limitless and you have got to watch Gattaca. Because the whole premise of both movies is where there's a will, there's a way. Although NZT as a drug within Limitless is kind of like this Deus Ex Machina thing, and I'm not down for Deus Ex Machina, at all. So technically, Gattaca's even better because it's just this guy who's he's an INTJ, and he literally infiltrates an entire society and gets away with everything because he develops the ultimate system to help him get through society as introverted intuition. It is amazing. Watch that, but it relates to Periani's question because that's the kind of society that we are risking when we come up with answers to these questions when it comes to, and then we have things called mental eugenics. And mental eugenics is always something that I've been categorically against. But the thing is, you kind of can't stop these things either. It's inevitable. Someone eventually is going to figure all this stuff out anyway. It doesn't matter how far ahead of everyone else I am. And then they're just going to, they're going to abuse it. All knowledge eventually gets abused. So, all the benefit but none of the responsibility. It's weird. We needed to teleport Uncle Ben from Spider-Man right now, and he'll give us a talking to, if you know what I mean. So.
What would I want to know? I would personally want some sort of, well, this is going to sound incredibly systematic of me, but some sort of well-defined structure as to how cognitive development takes place. So so basically perfection of this content from a neutral standpoint and mapping it out.
Yeah, but Vincent was a great character.
That's probably never going to happen.
Yeah.
So, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah,
there's too many variables.
Yeah.
It's like a million D question. A million to the power of million. Good luck.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be posting my favorite movies list on the website, and I might actually do movie review episodes just for the podcast. There'll be audio. But again, my most favorite movie of all time, hands down, is Arrival. It's like Jeremy Renner in it. And it basically is expert intuition. My second most favorite movie of all time is Inc. I-N-K, from 2009. Also a very expert intuition film. It is exquisite. One of the best independent films I've ever seen. The Pathfinder Jacob, he's an ENTP. Love that, and it's so dope. Third most favorite all time is Gattaca. Fourth most favorite all time is Limitless. Fifth most favorite all time is The Dark Knight because of Heath Ledger's chaotic evil portrayal of the Joker as an ENTP stuck in his superfluous ego. So, if you like to watch movies that I like to watch, by all means check them out and apply cognitive functions to them. I think you'd be pleasantly surprised. I think that qualifies enough for Periani's question. What's next, Jab?
It's another Periani question. Second question, but along the same lines. If you could have any 3 typology questions answered by an all-knowing genie, which 3 questions would you ask? Well, we basically kind of
covered that. 3 questions. What is your 3 questions? Well,
I gave 1. You gave 1. Let's do 1 more.
All right. I think it would be an entire, absolute, concrete understanding of the path to enlightenment and integration of all 4 sides of your mind, like an actual nice how-to guide, right?
Right.
Hashtag
how systematic
Deus Ex
of you.
Machina. Yeah, very systematic of me. Yeah, like gotta love that Deus Ex Machina approach. Like, I'm just gonna pray to God and ask for a car or a girlfriend, and it's like, wow, you're terrible if you actually do that.
Yeah, it sounds like you should rename it Deus Vult Machina, if you know what I mean. People are praying to God for that stuff.
Oh my God. Yeah. If you're gonna spend time praying, pray for wisdom and pray for humility, and then see how your life changes. All right. Well, next question.
Another question. Have you any insight into breaking down the 16 types into subtypes or flavors? Something better than Socionics or Enneagram? That's an interesting question.
Say that again. Who asked that?
So that's Periani again in the Platinum Q&A session.
Yep.
Have you any insight into breaking down the 16 types into subtypes or flavors? Something that's better than Socionics or Enneagram. So like with Enneagram with their wings and whatnot.
Yes, and we are working on that. We're just right now...
Isn't that effective?
Say again?
Isn't that effectively just a system which measures the degree of utilization of the different sides of your mind and how easily you can use them and how quickly they drain you?
Yes, there's actually an angle with the Big Five that you could do with it. The problem with the Big Five, it's very nurtural. It's like a hybrid of nature and nurture. But there is an algorithm that you can extract applying each of the 4 sides of the mind through a Big Five filter, and then you can actually get some really unique insights about subtypes. Like for example, I know everyone's talking about like assertive versus turbulent. I'm actually going to be doing an episode about assertive versus turbulent very soon. It's going to be a bonus episode of season 15 where we're going to be debunking assertive versus turbulent and why it's bullshit. But
it's bullshit.
It really is. But be that as it may, when we have that lecture out, it's going to be along the same lines as to, where does these subtypes actually come from? Because it really depends on the degree of development within the 4 sides of the mind. And we're actually going to be releasing a nurture test where you can actually measure your nurture. And you run it alongside measuring your nature. And then by measuring your nurture, you actually are able to see your level of happiness. You're also able to see your level of maturity. Now, obviously, these metrics are completely subjective. Fair enough. And obviously, you'd probably want to take the test to kind of see how it changes over time. And it's kind of going to be in the same direction as the self-authoring program, the various self-authoring programs that you see available on the internet today. But or a self-mentoring program, as they call it. I don't know the technical terminology that they have, but it is something that we're working on. But when those two tests come together, you'll actually have a more complete picture. And imagine that, because if you're able to measure your nurture and actually be somewhat accurate, like even if the test is not 100% accurate, that's fine. Ballparking, I'm cool with ballparking in nurture land, because we don't exactly have enough data input to be able to measure nurture yet. I'm working on that as well. One of the technologies that will be coming out after a few of our mobile apps are out will be specifically nurtural, and then we'll be able to make that data available to users so they could see where in relation to each other is their happiness level, as well as where their maturity level is, right? So that's kind of, something that we'll be working on. So, yeah, fair enough. What's next?
All right, and that comes down to that infographic that we have prepared to show up. So last question to start off with.
The giant infographic. Okay, Periani, if you're going to make us amazing infographics like you make us, like, because they're dope, please make sure that they fit on the screen, just to throw that out there. But yeah, let's see if it'll pop up here. There it is. I hope everyone can see this. So basically, he's asking a question with this infographic. So given this, and he's talking about cognitive axes, we have the perception axes and the judgment axes, is also this objective input versus subjective input. I'm not entirely sure I agree with objective versus subjective there. And then subjective input versus objective input, I'm not entirely sure. I think NISE might actually be accurate, but objective versus subjective might be backwards with NE and SI. I would maintain that SI is actually a bit more objective input on that side. And then also the inputs and outputs themselves, I don't necessarily agree on either. Because, like, for example, maybe I should actually just write it down on the whiteboard here. I think that's what I'm going to do. And can everyone, see? Okay, yeah, they could see a little bit. Yeah, we'll write under the 5. Okay, so all right. So remember, we have TE as our input, and then we have TI as our process, and then we have FE as our output, and then we have FI as our feedback. So feedback is here. Right, and then process for TI. Okay, so then, and this is how the information flows. It goes through here, and then all the way back, and it's a loop. This is a system. I learned about this stuff in systems analysis class. This is actually probably the only thing I remember from college other than game theory. But they didn't tell it to us in the context of cognitive functions. So TE is input. I'm very logical. TI users, they're brilliant. They can think their way through things. The problem is, it doesn't matter how smart or intelligent you are with your processor, with your TI, because if the input you start with, your entire logical tree, is completely inaccurate and a complete waste of time. Which, when I learn something new, because I'm being given proper input, like, for example, recently I've been getting some good input on food health. It's giving me a lot of additional research to check out. I just bought a bunch of books. I'm going to be reading all of those. I'm changing my input so that my TI process is being improved, so I can get an output that I'm looking for, which is FE. And then hopefully I can get a good feedback from the person who's been assisting me from a food research standpoint, just so that I can have some improvement in my life, because I need it. And then as a result of that, it just starts all over again. This is an excellent thing. Now, I'm a TIFE user, so like in a friendship or a relationship, I'm really providing just this piece, the middle. And then all the other areas need to be covered by somebody else, essentially. So that's that entire loop right there. So when Periani in this infographic is talking about inputs and outputs, I don't necessarily agree with how he has the functions in that area, because I would maintain that they need to follow this model and not the model that he has. But he is putting it versus subjectivity versus objectivity. So I think him and I would probably need to have a private conversation and go over this model a little bit more, and then go and put it through subjectivity and objectivity to actually have an idea. Now, moving forward, it says when framed as quadras. I'm going to try to move it around here so we can actually see it better. Let's see here. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta. Alpha Quadra, just saying. And I really like Gamma Quadra a lot. So, and to what extent can we assume this? Alpha types, the most reliable to get unbiased feedback. No. Again, without it following this system right here, this basic system, I can't say that I agree with the contents of this infographic. This infographic is fantastic. We just need to make some adjustments to it as long as it's following this model right here, and then it would be more accurate to convey something. So Periani is providing me input. I'm processing it. TI says no. Here's the output. That's no. And then he will give me feedback, and then we'll be able to work on this further and get this infographic up where it needs to be. So I think that's going to be how we are going to be moving forward with that. So thank you, Periani, for putting together these amazing infographics, which, by the way, Jab, we should probably make his first one available to everyone, because that infographic is outstanding. That first one he made, it was really dope.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if we were to make the, I'm not sure about the permissions, but if we made some of the patron Q&A sections read only for everyone else, so they can still see the questions and see the infographics that he posts with his questions. Maybe that's something we could do in the future. But yeah, that's all the platinum questions. Let's go to the...
Yeah, let's go to the
the Patreon Q&A. Woo! Alright! So, I had just revisited the video on functional emulation for cognitive sensors, and I feel that I have a general grasp on emulation through the combination of applicable cognitive functions. However, the combination of SE and NI to emulate SI seems counterintuitive, given that SE is physics in the moment and NI is future-orientated. With that said, does SE NI emulate SI due to NI being a perceiving function and SE being a sensing function that, when combined, demonstrates loyalty and the receiving of experience? Thanks.
That's an excellent question. So, all right. Gosh, I need to my eraser is gone. That's terrible. Okay.
Hand.
Yeah, I guess I'm just gonna use my hand. That's why God invented sinks with soap, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Yeah, so it looks like crap, but whatever. I mean, SE Demon. All right, so from an emulation standpoint, NI plus SE can become SI for a momentary time. Why is that? Incoming anime reference. Full Metal Alchemist, right? Equivalent trade, right? It's not actually technically equivalent trade because for some reason they always end up screwing themselves when they're using the Deus Ex Machina plot device transmutation through alchemy, right? But basically this is an alchemic reaction. You see something very subjective in the metaphysical world that you want. It's willpower, right? The thing is that willpower gives you the ability to select the ideal path that you could see in the metaphysical. And you're like, okay, the ideal path at this point is for me to produce some loyalty. You grab that information, you throw it in extroverted sensing, and you mix it together, basically, and you could throw out an SI, introverted sensing, output. Why? You first have to observe in the metaphysical land with your introverted intuition exactly what it is you want. And that means it has to be influenced by an external source. What is that external source that it's being influenced? Introverted sensing itself. Actually, that's wrong. It's extrovert intuition, but I don't think anyone can actually see that behind the microphone. But so extrovert intuition, which is feeding the NI. So metaphysics is providing the NI the information, and then it's going into extroverted sensing. They're mixing together, and they're able to produce SI or make an SI user comfortable, and they actually produce loyalty in another person. But they can actually appear loyal. How is that? The reverse. If you're going the opposite direction, it's not that way. If you're going the opposite direction, they're actually absorbing the loyalty of the other person. And then because they're absorbing that loyalty, because they're consuming the loyalty, they themselves become loyal, right? So if they are around this NISE user, if they are around loyal people, they're absorbing all of those people's sense of loyalty, and for a limited time, they're able to behave loyally themselves because everyone around them is loyal, basically. If they're around a lot of SI users. And they can appear like an SI user for a limited time to other SE users, right? And then those other SE users end up thinking that they're loyal. And I don't know how many times I've heard INFJs or ENFJs saying, I am super, super loyal. Or NJs in general saying, I'm a really loyal person. I'm like, yeah, you're loyal because you probably haven't been betrayed that much in your life. Let's be honest. Because they're around loyal people. Healthy, loyal people, right? Which enables them as NI plus ESE users to be loyal and healthy themselves, basically, right? So that's what's happening, okay? So that's how I'd answer that question, Jab. Jab?
And I left my microphone muted for some reason.
Oh, anyway, okay. Sorry, I thought you were getting an important phone call for a second there.
No. Okay. You'll hear it if I get the important phone call.
The Australian secret police was on to you, so that's too bad.
Exactly. Anyway, hi Chase. What project are you most excited for in the near future for your company?
Anything dating related. Actually, in the immediate future, we're releasing something called 8 Simple Rules, which is going to be something really cool, where given a certain context, when 8 Simple Rules comes out, and yes, it's a spin off of that one famous television show, but when 8 Simple Rules comes out, it will basically be the first wave of battle cards regarding type that you could utilize with a certain social context. So imagine a social context, and that could be sales, that could be parenting, that could be sexuality, it could be friendship, whatever. Any kind of human interaction, each different context has a set of 8 rules. And we might also have 16 rules, actually. I'm thinking about doing 16 rules. It's more of like a needs versus wants, etc., from a Friedrich Nietzsche standpoint. And then you have all those rules per type, basically per social situation, as battle cards that we're going to be making available. It's going to be absolutely amazing. And I've handwritten so many of those in my coaching sessions and like given them out to people and customized them to people, their individual situations. So I'm actually going to create general battle cards and just be like, you get a battle card and you get a battle card. Everyone gets a battle card, right? And then all of a sudden they actually have like...
All right, bro.
You know what I mean? Yeah, well, I mean, we just did the Oprah thing, right? So I was inspired, because obviously I'm an ENFJ because my intuition is so external that the test can figure it out, and I'm obviously an ENFJ. No, she's actually an ESFJ, but whatever.
I am. All right, next question. How to alleviate the fears of an ESTJ who perceives that he is losing control over... Oh...
I want to bring that up. Let's see here. Let's see if I can bring it up on my side. I want to read that directly.
How to alleviate fears of an ESTJ who perceives that he is losing control over. So if an ESTJ thinks he's losing control over things, how can you calm him down?
How do you calm the ESTJ down? Basically help him get control, help him get things under control again, remove as much chaos as possible. If his routine has been completely destroyed, you need to build a new routine, basically, and help him create healthy habits. Otherwise, if it's absolute chaos, he's going to start creating routine, but that could include unhealthy habits. And then as a result of that, they're going to be screwed over for a very long time due to said unhealthy habits. Not something I'd recommend. So.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what's next?
Okay. Next. All right, so this one might be a little bit long, but I think if we break it down in terms of cognitive functions, we can do it a lot quicker. So what's the best way to cheer up each type?
The best way to cheer up each type, and yes, I know there's a super chat. We will get to it. We have to remember we have our format priority here. We're getting to the super chats. It's number 3, and we already got one done. We're on number 2 right now. So how to cheer each type up the best? Basically, you want to be a supporter to their inferior function as much as possible, and also their child function. Just target their child and their inferior, and that is the gateway to making almost any type happy, basically. And that's as simple as I can answer that question.
Perfect. All right, now this one's a bit longer. Does NI Hero include knowing what they want to do in every moment? I feel like I know what I want in life, but sometimes when friends over the internet ask me to spend time with them, I'm not always sure what I want to do. Scenario, friend, hey, want to hang out? Me, sure. Friend, what do you want to do? Me, I don't know.
Well, the friend, what do you want to do, is basically the friend, like saying, hey, want to hang out? Okay, it was established that they're going to hang out. What do you want to do? It's more like, what do you want to do now? So it actually doesn't become an NI situation anymore. It becomes an SE situation. And SE inferior is a bit more insecure. So, because I don't know what to do, because it's more like they're saying, I don't know what I want to do right now because I don't know how you would react to what I would want. So I'd rather hear what you would think is a good experience before I offer suggestions further. And that's how that's working in her mind as she's asking that question. So she actually, because the human language is very lazy with conveying cognitive functions appropriately, it's missed that third sentence, what do you want to do? It's actually, what do you want to do now? ? And that's an SE question.
Right. Okay. So that's actually just SE inferior. Yeah. Being not wanting to give them a bad experience, so they're unsure as to how to proceed when it comes to choosing what they should do when they hang out.
And then and do I think whether or not she has NI Hero? I do believe she has NI Hero, hands down. So no problem on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
She has another one, I think.
Yeah, she does.
Okay.
What does an INFJ demon look like? What about ISTJ? So I think what she's asking is...
it's very self-destructive. That's what it looks like. It's extremely self-destructive, or it's going to seek out justice at the expense of others, regardless of the collateral damage. Or when they are being self-destructive, because INFJs integrate themselves so much with other people that when they go demon mode with their superego, because they're so integrated, when they do self-destruction, it actually causes harm to the people closest to them. And I had an INFJ ex-girlfriend at one point in time, and she went SI demon mode. She thought that I wasn't paying enough attention to her, her SE inferior was that, and she imagined that I was being disloyal to her. So you know what she started doing? She started cutting herself in front of me, basically. Yeah, what a great thing to do to FE child. Just start cutting yourself. Yeah, she made her way quickly into the dumpster after that. Yeah, not down for that whatsoever. I have no patience for that. No. So that's just one example. SI Demon is very self-destructive, and it always has collateral damage because INFJs integrate themselves so much with other people. When they light themselves on fire, it's going to burn those that they are connected to the most, and it's absolutely horribly selfish. Or they're seeking out and meting out justice, and it doesn't matter, and they don't care if they destroy the world or others in order to get to that one person. Because, and again, it's just that pure form of selfishness, that a pure form of depravity, self-destructive depravity through SI Demon.
Okay, and she also asks, what about ISTJ? I'm guessing that means ISTJ Demon.
Yeah, that's what that means.
Okay. All right. Next question comes from Runic Knight.
Oh, I haven't seen that Knight in a while.
INTP, struggling with discerning people's intentions. Any tips for how to be able to verify which friends actually have my back and who I'm wasting my time on? Most of my friends are either INFP, INFJ, or ENFPs. I don't seem to enjoy being around other types, or perhaps I'm just overthinking and it's my natural distrust that's making me paranoid.
Okay, so you can't really verify loyalty as an INTP. You just can't because you have SE Trickster. I mean, I can't. I have SE Demon. So the only way for NTPs to verify loyalty to other people is get NTJs into their life, or even NJs. Just get NJs in your life, and NJs value loyalty more than all of the other types, and have conversations with them. Tell them about your friends. Tell them about the people that you're concerned about whether or not they're loyal or not. They will be able to tell you. You got to go to an SE user to find out. And even that SE user may even be willing to do a loyalty check on your behalf. That's cool. I've actually had that happen to me before. Seeing a loyalty check done on my behalf towards somebody that I wasn't sure if they were loyal or not. It's like some kind of loyalty check canary trapping. Like use canary traps to catch spies or to determine if people are disloyal. And you have this other SE user become your cat's paw. If you don't know what the cat's paw is, you need to look that up. It's part of the 48 Laws of Power. And they become your cat's paw, and they do a loyalty check on your behalf, basically. And quite frankly, that's the only surefire way for an NTP or even an NFP to verify if someone else is loyal to you. That's like the only way. So, awesome.
Okay. Do you believe that depression/manic depression exists?
Yeah, absolutely. I dealt with huge amounts of depression as a small child, which probably led to my obesity. When I was like 300 pounds, like I weighed 287 when I was 14. Like that's like terrible. Depression is definitely a thing. And the types that feel depression the most would be INFJs and INFPs statistically. But in terms of quadras go, NFJ, STP quadra, STJ, NFP quadra would be the types that feel depression the most compared to others. The NTJ, SFP, and the SFJ, NTP quadras do not feel depression as often, although they can. It's just not as bad. With INFJs and INFPs being the absolute worst because they're just so idealistic and reality is not ideal and it really struggles. And not only that, it also depends on culture because if you have an NF temperament culture, it's not as bad. I mean, you can look at some NF related cultures inside in Europe basically. Whereas if they end up in the United States and it's an SJ culture, it's just like, not exactly ideal at all. So awesome. Cool. I think we're done with the Patreon questions at this point.
Yeah, I think somebody's planning on pasting one in to get one through, but in the meantime, we can just move on to the super chat until we see a fresh one.
Let's do it. Jeff.
All right, so Max G94, sorry for the wait, good sir. But he asks, why are male ENFPs betas at best? Is this the case even when consistent self-development work?
Yes, this is consistent. Conor McGregor, an ENFP, for some reason thinks he's an alpha male. Like, he's not. I'm sorry. He is not. He is a beta. Like, he can go get over himself. He is seriously a beta. The reason why is because ENPs, ENTPs, ENFPs, we have the power to gain the world. We do not have the power to keep it. And one of the best examples of that is Littlefinger from Game of Thrones. He has the power to gain the world. Even potentially gain the Iron Throne. Good luck keeping it, because as soon as he gets it, he's going to be betrayed and killed. Because he had to lie, cheat, and steal his way to get there. SE Demon does not really make other people loyal because he's showing that he is disloyal. So why is anyone going to be loyal if he's disloyal himself, right? It's a catch-22 and he's a freaking hypocrite. And that's the problem. You have to be willing to sacrifice your ethics for the sake of megalomania as an ENTP. You have to be willing to sacrifice your morals, and both types have to sacrifice their loyalty for the sake of megalomania to basically take over the world. And they absolutely can. They can take over the world. It almost happened a few times with ENPs. The problem is, they're starter types. They always fizzle out in the end. They're not alphas. They're not made for power. ENTPs are not made for power. ENFPs are not made for power. They are made for influence, okay? So at best, they could be the beta in the wolf pack, but they're not the alpha. The alpha, though, is married to the wolf pack. They can't leave the wolf pack. They stay with the wolf pack. They stay with the village. They run the village. They are the village. They are to be respected as such. The ENP, though, is a pathfinder. Pathfinders are shaman. Shaman, they lead through influence, not power, like the chief does, you know. So because of their influence, they can become very strong spiritual leaders, motivational speakers, like, you know, Tony Robbins, etc., who is an ENP, right? And as a result of that, we find ourselves in like, oh, hey, you're a beta. And he's like, yeah, sure, but I'm the strongest beta. I'm the shaman. I'm just as respected as the chief of the village. The thing is that unlike the chief of the village, I can leave this village and go to the next village and just be just as respected there because of my influence, right? That's the real difference between ENPs and, why they're betas and not alphas. Alphas, being the alpha, takes a lot of responsibility, and that's why STPs and NFJs can get away with being alphas, but SFJs and NTPs cannot. They are forever betas, and that's just how it goes. And it's not a bad thing. Like, it's not. And besides, NTP, SFJs, they're more feminine anyway because their psyches are closer to the yin and not the yang, whereas NTJs and NTJs are more close to the yang, right? Or NFJs are closer to the yang, and then you have ESTPs and ESTJs and ISTJs and ISTPs closer to the yang. But so they're more masculine, right? So just keep that in mind. ENPs, they're yin, they're feminine, they're not alphas. They can take the world, they can take the throne, but then they're done. Actually, like, you could look in history. The Spider King of France, look him up. He was an ENP. He knew what to do to keep his throne, but ultimately, it's not sustainable. Now if he's loyal to a few people and utilizes leadership, and leadership is transferring power to other human beings. That's all it is transference of power, and then trusting them and holding them accountable for that power that is given to them. Okay, you could make an argument that because he's got a bunch of NTJs around him, he may still be able to be the king, but he's still not the alpha. He just has alphas working for him. He's still a beta. He's just exuding that influence. Influence is the true power of the ENP because they're basically shaman pathfinders, whereas chiefs, ENTJs, for example, or whatever, those more yang types, they're the alphas, ESTPs, and they need to be respected as such. The thing is that they can't leave from village to village. They're trying to create their own village. That's the difference. Whereas at least ENPs, as the shaman, can bow out and just get out if things get bad, or if they start being disrespected by the chief. They can leave, and no one's going to, not care as much. This is often why ENPs find themselves being super independent, especially ENTPs, because who's willing to listen, right? Like, who really is willing to listen? So that's kind of. Do you think I covered that question well enough, Jeb?
Yes, pretty good.
Cool.
Got another super chat. Let's make sure I didn't accidentally miss it. It was from Gamtao again. Gamtaru, sorry. And he asks, what would the geek/nerd with FI hero look like when compared to a geek/nerd with TI hero?
It's basically just principles. They create like laws or processes that they follow, and those laws and processes can be actually potentially brilliant. You just look at the INFP Robert Greene. He's an amazing academic. He's no intellectual, but he's an academic. FI Hero has the ability to think with as much sharpness as TI Hero, but again, remember, it's the model's not here anymore, but it's feedback based, whereas TI is all about processing data, processing the input, whereas FI is all about providing that immediate feedback to things, right? And they make decisions based on their feedback primarily. They see everything around. They see the output of the world, the output of reality, and they're like, I don't like that, or I do like that, and they filter everything out based on that. So feedback is a filter, in as much as processing data with TI is also a filter. It's just a different kind of filter. They're the two filters, whereas input and output are what support those filters, etc. It's just that feedback is at the end of the loop, whereas TE is the input and it's the beginning of the loop, basically. But then again, you could argue that any of those could be the beginning or the end, depending on the situation. And it's just like a little clock thing that you could turn, as needed, basically. So, yeah.
Okay. That covers all the super chats so far. Let me double check that we don't have any fresh patron questions. No. All right. Regular question time.
No, FI is not an extroverted function, Lin Yan Chen. It's an introverted function. It's just it seems it can be extroverted because of extroverted thinking, because the feedback that it's providing is fueling the input that is being provided to others, TE input.
Hi, Chase. I was an INTP pilot for 10 years. The many ISTPs I flew with were much better at memorizing checklists and emergency procedures than me, even though SI is my third function and SI is their sixth function. Does that mean that Socionics right that the fifth and sixth... Does that mean Socionics is right about the fifth and sixth functions, though unconscious are actually stronger than the third and fourth functions of the subconscious? I think it means of the ego.
I need more context or him to ask the question in a different way, but I would say though I'm gonna give it a shot anyway.
Do you want me to try and reword it as to how I perceive the question?
Yeah, go for it.
Alright, so he's an INT pilot for 10 years and he's found that ISTPs were much better at memorization with regards to checklists and emergency procedures. Now, he's saying that SI is...
I don't know if that's true.
Okay. Okay. Well, the point he's trying to make is that SI is his third function, whereas SI is the sixth function of ISTPs.
Okay. But ISTPs would technically be better pilots anyway because they have, with procedures, because they have instruments that are physically in front of them and their memories are stored in the physical world. The instrument panel that they have in the cockpit itself literally is a giant totem to the ISTP, and it's a parent function versus the child function, which has long-term memory in the INTP. Of course, the ISTP pilot's going to be better at remembering stuff, provided that none of these people are mistyped. So
right. I mean, you'd think an INTP, being a systematic type with decent SI, would be really good at standard operating procedures. But yeah, that makes me think there might be a mistype going on. Alright, let's go to the next question. How can I, as an INFP, train myself to not be a doormat?
As an INFP, don't give your sympathy just to anyone. Only be sympathetic to people that you should be loyal to, and don't just be loyal to anyone. Otherwise, if you put your loyalty in the wrong person, they're going to take advantage of your sympathy, and they're going to use their guilt tactics to extract sympathy from you, which will cause you to basically be their slaves for like a long time and put your reputation in line. They'll even blackmail you by threatening your reputation to get you to do what they want, which is horrible and could lead you to going super ego randomly at any given time. You just go like freaking ISTP demon and not allowing anyone else to have any ideas because only your ideas are true. And then you're going to behave and make all those decisions yourself without any input from other people or providing input from other people, without any process or output from other people. It's just, that's it. You're just going to make all the decisions yourself and don't care the consequences and live in the moment. Bad idea. And that's extremely harmful to everyone around you. Yeah, like don't do that. Like you'd be taking a chainsaw basically and chainsawing things that should not be chainsawed, if you know what I mean. So yeah, don't find yourself in that situation. Guard your heart. Do not allow yourself to be loyal to just anyone. Do not allow anyone to try to extract sympathy out of you until you at least suss them out. If you need help sussing them out, find yourself NFJs or STPs especially to help you. The best STP that I would recommend for that, definitely ESTPs, because that FE child and that SE hero combined together, it's like the ultimate loyalty check and the ultimate value check oh, does this person have values? No, they don't have any values. And they're weak. And why are you putting your loyalty in that person? Why are you being sympathetic to such a weak person? Oh, you're being sympathetic because they're weak. Okay, the problem is that that's making you weak as well, because you're effectively enabling them with their sympathy, and you're actually keeping them weak while simultaneously weakening yourself. And you're literally creating a lose-lose situation, INFPs. Stop doing it. That's why ESTPs in relationships with INFPs is actually a very good thing, and I actually recommend it for sure.
Perfect. Okay. I just lost where I was up to. Give me a second. I know exactly what question. It was like 3 down from the last point. All right. So this next question is: since INTP is most socially compatible with ENTJ, would you recommend a romantic relationship between the two? As an INTP, it is hard for me to get past the NE critic sometimes. What? An INTP with NE critic?
Yeah, I don't... The answer to that question is yes, but disregard the NE critic part for INTPs. So...
Wait. Unless he's talking about the NE critic of the ENTJs.
Yeah. I think
it can become...
gotten there.
It can come across as very narrow-minded, and that's unattractive to me. Oh, okay, so he's talking about ENTJs having NE critic, and he finds it unattractive.
Well, any critic can not be very developed, and it could just assume, it could just jump to conclusions. This especially happens if he's a man and he's going for an ENTJ woman. If they're reveling and not revering, if they are reveling in their pain, their NE critic is just going to automatically assume betrayal, and then treat the INTP unfairly and judge that INTP based on everyone else in their life. It's not fair and not right. Not something I'd recommend. Run for the hills if that's the case. But if this woman is in reverence and revering life and taking her pain not for granted, but actually accepting her pain and realizing that her pain is actually making her into a better person and is actually useful, and is willing to feel pain for the sake of becoming a better person, especially the pain of failure, for example, to gain wisdom. Okay, yeah, sure, fine, we can do that. But for the most part, if they're immature and they're an addicted lover, or impotent lover, run for the hills. Now, conversely, switch that around. What if it's an INTP woman, right? What if it's an ENTJ male, right? It's are they a workaholic? That's the impotent lover, or are they just fast and loose and lying to people, saying well, I have all these women lined up right now that I'm screwing, and they're basically cattle set up for me right now, and I'm going to choose which one's the best based on how I feel about it, etc. Which is the addicted lover variant for the male masculine. Run for the hills from that way, because again, it just stems from expert intuition critic not being wise and very witchy, scenic-y, basically, not cool. So, but yeah, that's how I answer that question.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, sounds good.
Rebecca Cervantes asked, on the subject of the mature feminine, should I respect the man even if he does not respect me as much as I respect him? The way that works is, and this comes from season 4 playlist, always show your man respect even if he doesn't deserve it, provided he is loving towards you. If he is not being loving towards you, then good luck being respectful towards him, because the requirement is that he's being loving towards you. There is no two-way street with respect thing in terms of primary versus primary. That's not how it works. Women need love primarily, and respect is secondary to them. This is why you have a bunch of women who are in relationships with men who basically disrespect them on a regular basis, but they are loved, and they value the love more so than in the disrespect. And again, this is very general, and there's different ways of interpreting this based on type, but that's a very general statement that applies to women in general. So I'm being general there. I'm generalizing, okay? There's a reason. It's just nurtural generalizing, okay? But from a... but remember, the onus is also on men. You need to be loving your woman regardless if she deserves it or not. And that's the standard for both genders in masculine feminine relationships. And as long as you keep that standard up, everyone's bases are covered. Love and respect is really where the relationship is. Remember, everyone needs to be loved and respected. It's just what's more important. To men, respect is more important because women have this problem where they can just love about any guy on the street, typically, especially when they're immature. That's why it's not good enough to love a man. They have to be respected. And the definition of respect, especially according to Mark Driscoll in his book Real Marriage, which if you haven't read that book, you need to read that book. And I'm not saying that you have to get married or marriage is a good thing or being all churchy about it. I'm just looking at it from his definition of what respect actually means, because the word love is inclusive in his definition of respect, because it's not good enough for a woman to tell a man, I love you. It is never good enough. That's why respect has love inclusive within its definition, right? Whereas a man provides true love, willing to even die for his woman, that kind of love. No greater love than when a man gives up his life for his beloved. That's the kind of love that he needs to be offering his woman and making sure that's there at all times. This is why I do not enter into sexual relationships unless I am willing to take a bullet for the woman. I just can't do it. One, as you all are aware, how to social engineer ENTPs. I did that lecture recently. I can't just allow myself to be loyal to anyone, because what if they're abusing me? And then I could end up developing Stockholm Syndrome for them. You see what I'm saying? SI inferior is a very weak and gushy, soft, pliable thing that it could be loyal to the wrong people if it doesn't have enough self-discipline built up over time in life to be able to handle that. So as a self-disciplined hypersexual male like myself, I have to literally deny myself until I am safe enough to not deny myself, basically, from a sexual point of view. Because I need to make sure that if I'm going to have sex with somebody, I'm going to be loyal to that person. Period. End of story. And that loyalty extends to me giving my life up for that person, because no greater love is my standard. So based on that, I can't just have sex willy-nilly with just anyone. I can't just not be loyal to just anyone, right? That's why. And again, it all stems back to love and respect, right? I need to be respected. She needs to be loved. I like to be loved too, but not as much as I like to be respected. She likes to be respected too, but not as much as she likes to be loved. And it's important that we're meeting each other's primary needs. After we meet our primary needs, the secondary needs are handled. So that's how I'd answer that, as very diatribe-like as I can.
Yeah, okay. Next question. Can you do a how to type poker table edition? I'm trying to get paid.
What?
I think this person's asking, can you teach him how to use type to win at poker at the poker table?
There is that. You can do that. That requires extroverted sensing, usually. And the best ones to do it, this is going to sound weird, but the best poker players, in my opinion, are NTJs, because they can use their SE inferior. Yeah. And they can use SE inferior or SE child as well in conjunction with expert intuition, nemesis, or critic. It's funny watching SPs with high SE, like SE hero or parent, playing poker, and they're like, I know what that guy's doing because he has all these tells. And I'm like, no, you can see the tells, but you don't know the intentions behind the tells. Whereas NTJs can see both, and that's why NTJs end up winning in the end when they're playing.
Why poker. NTJs though? Why not just NJs?
Yeah, you could do NJs, but it really the thing is though is that NJs don't have that TE, and the TE really helps the NTJ players in poker area to keep track of which cards are where, basically. Right. Where it's harder for NFJs to keep track of the cards that are still in the deck. And potentially how many cards are on the table and all the mathematics involved with that, because the TE user could see all of the hands of the other players basically present, and they could keep track of all the tallies based on the amount of cards that they could see right then and there, stored in with their extroverted thinking and extroverted sensing simultaneously. NFJs do not have such an advantage. cognitively speaking, NTJs are the best poker players, hands down. So.
Perfect. Thank you. I will now hit the casino tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing that with me. What's the next question? How does someone social engineer someone in their subconscious? By doing this, the person would have to go into their superego, and that doesn't sound like something you would want to do when social engineering them.
Well, if you need,
for example,
okay,
INTP going into ISFP superego to social engineer ESFJ.
No, you don't have to go that far. You don't have to cognitive transition all the way into your superego. That's not how it works. You just have to emulate cognitive functions. Watch the lecture on cognitive emulation. Seriously, watch that lecture. It doesn't say you have to go in your superego to do it. Like, seriously, you don't. You just have to think really hard and adjust yourself to the situation at hand. That's all you have to do. You don't have to, like, cognitive transition your superego for, like, the most success. That's not going to work, and it's going to blow up in your face because it's like playing with fire or making the deal with the devil specifically to do a social engineering attack. That's sustainable. Yeah, no. You're probably going to lose an arm in the process. Not good. Or maybe many years off of your life, for example. Don't do it.
Okay. Sorry, someone just PM'd me and I to make sure, and I lost where I was. So next question is, what types do you believe gravity and time are?
What types?
This seems like a very abstract question. So what types do you believe gravity and time are?
Honestly, I'm going to pass on that particular question.
Perfect.
The reason is that gets into some super metaphysical stuff that I'm not comfortable discussing. That's the kind of talk that I would prefer to discuss with close friends, and definitely not something I want to discuss on a live stream, quite frankly. Yeah, I mean, that's up there with asking me about, what was some of the other things that I refused to talk about on the stream for a while? Like, I can't even...
Certain relationship stuff.
Yeah, like, yeah.
And I know what else, but I don't want to bring it up because then people are going to start asking about it.
Yeah, exactly. No, thank you. Thank you for asking, but that's definitely not something appropriate for me to be talking about. So let's move on to the next.
Fair enough. Well, I guess this question's more for me. Do I have to say it out loud that I like an INTJ? They will not recognize. Well, I'm guessing you're an informative type.
Yeah, they sound pretty informative.
Well, if you're an informative type, there's a good chance that you're compatible.
All you have to do to an INTJ, is say, hey, here's who I am. Here's what my standards are. I'm open, and that's it. If they want to pursue, then they will do that. And if an I-Hero wants to pursue, they're going to pursue. If they don't want to, they're not going to talk to you. And then there you have your answer. Move on. Like, it's that easy. Like, it's not that hard. You have to give them a choice. That's all it is. It's just choice. Okay. Give them freedom of choice.
Sure. I mean, but I can answer that question from experience. Well, at least. Well, without getting too personal, basically, from my experience, is if somebody is being extremely informative towards me, and they're acting cozy like they might potentially like me, I will call them out on it. And then, so somebody would be being informative, and they're being extremely nice to me, and they're trying to get cozy to me. I will call them out. I'll be like, "Do you like me?" And they'll be like, "Whoa, that's incredibly forward."
Yeah, exactly. The thing is, though, is that it's always good for INTJs to be forward in that way, especially if they're like with going for informative NPs. Because if you suspect that an NP is interested in you, call them out. Just straight up call them out.
Yeah.
Bring it into the SE realm. Bring them into the SE realm. And by you bringing it in the SE realm in that way, it's like, okay, this INTJ has bothered to find out. This is a very good sign. And because they wouldn't have bothered if it wasn't a priority to them. See, that's the point. It's an I-Hero.
And it's not only that. Sometimes if an INTJ is avoiding the issue, it might mean that they're not interested, but they just don't want to give you a bad experience with their superior by saying that they're not interested. So they will try and avoid the topic at all chances possible, or act clueless whenever you try to be incredibly, well, on the forward end of informative, I guess. They'll just act like they're clueless and don't know what you're talking about when they've got that TE parent and that NE nemesis, and they've been thinking it from the start. It might mean they're not interested if they haven't been forward and said, "Do you like me?"
Yeah.
Or at least that's my experience.
Yeah. So Andy in the chat said that's not romantic. LOL. Yeah, it seems that way, but to an NP, it kind of is actually, because NPs like to be desired. They like someone to be passionate towards them. And they, extrovert intuition needs to be pursued or initiated with by introvert intuition eventually. It has to happen. And luckily the introverted sensing is present, because it's like, oh, hey, this person is still talking to me, so they're actually like going out of their way and making a conscious decision to actually still interact with me. So that's a plus. And then eventually extrovert intuition is going to kick in and be like, okay, yeah, but are they actually interested? So it's always good in the long run to make sure that there's no question marks, because if there's like question marks floating around in that interaction, it's just always better to just put out, get it in the SE realm. Now, that can be difficult for INTJs because SE inferior, because of SE inferior insecurity, fear, the performance anxiety potentially, which leads to a form of fear of rejection, similar to how FE inferior is also fear of rejection, at least on an emotional level. It's like an emotional rejection, whereas with the SE, it's more of a physical rejection. Yeah. It's still a fear of rejection. It's just which kind of rejection is it, basically. And I know that's really difficult for INTJs to get over. And that's why typically when interacting with NTJs or NJs in general, I'm just like, TI parent, like, here I am. I'm available. There you have it. Your choice. I'm not going to feel bad if you're not interested. Fair enough. And I just, because eventually, but that doesn't happen initially. Eventually things will build, and introverted sensing inferior can't handle it anymore, because it's like the inner cauldron of SI fills up over time, and then eventually it'll explode, or just it could explode depending on the situation, but it'll just start spilling over. And then, okay, TI parent needs to kick in. I'm making the statement known. Boom. There you go. Truth. Done. And when I'm snapping my fingers, I'm imagining being the flame alchemist from Full Metal Alchemist and just exploding everything and fire everywhere. Just saying. But that would be the way to do it, essentially. So, what do we got next, Mr. Jab? We got a super chat yet?
We actually got another one who snuck in a Patreon Q&A. So we're going back to the Patreon Q&A.
Patreon Q&A.
And this person says, "Hi Chase, not a hello to me. Wow, rude. You mentioned the lack of compatibility being part of SI Demon. Can you explain more about that? I've been reading a lot of David Data lately, and he talks about masculine and feminine sexual essences. I definitely have feminine sexual essence. I know ENPs that definitely have a masculine sexual essence who have clear direction in their life. Can you go into how this works / looks like? How can an NJ like me, who likes to be very feminine, treat NP men in a way that is true to me and respectful of them?" Wow. That's a very big question.
Well, I mean, if you're a member of the male gender, of course you have a masculine sexual essence, but you also have to understand our psyches are also attached to yin versus yang tendencies, being pliable versus firm, right? There's a lot of different approaches in that way. So I don't know. That's I don't even understand the context of lack of capability being part of SID, but I don't even know what that means. So I need an additional context to be able to answer that appropriately. So
Okay. So, do you need more context?
Yeah, I need more context.
Quickly, Dawn, give us some more context. I'll go on to the next question. I probably have only got like another 4 minutes in me before I'll have to bail, but if you want to go on to YouTube comments after I have to leave, maybe do that.
All right.
So let's go to question. All right. Is it possible for two camaraderie types naturally to take turns shifting in and out of the shadow function, or I guess subconscious, although that's not mentioned, even in just one sitting, valuing doing so because it is proven to allow the best outcome for that relationship, thus giving them the ability to have a healthy, deep relationship with someone who they can also have camaraderie with? I realized I'm very much what I call a dominant NFP with most of my NFP friends, noticing most of them shift into more of an NFJ-ish mode when we're together. But I shift when I pick up on them needing to shift back. A close NFP friend of mine is also dominant with camaraderie types, and I've found that we shift back and forth equally. And I actually really enjoy doing it. It makes me feel like a really good, respectable friend that I can utilize other strengths. That I can utilize other strengths, bracket, that I've learned how to be very NFJ-ish, in order to allow these people to remain themselves when they're hurting or in need of being heard. It feels like I'm still being true to myself because I've adopted the traits I use when I shift as valuable parts of me, who I am, and they have done the same for themselves. Is that a possible explanation?
So they asked the question, and then they shared their thoughts on the subject, basically. Well, the answer to the question is yes. So there you have it.
All right, we got a super chat from Sarah Robin. I've seen an NTP pattern of not getting upset by rejection because of responsible TI. Would TI hero not take rejection as easily because it's not as responsible?
No, it would take it much harder because of FE inferior. FE inferior really cannot handle rejection compared to, like, so between INTP and ENTP, ENTPs can handle rejection. In fact, ENTPs usually expect the rejection because SI inferior has experience knowing just how much we make people uncomfortable with SE demon. So based on that, we kind of expect rejection. Especially when it comes to masculine-feminine relationships, romantic relationships, sexual relationships. So it just kind of doesn't bother us if we are rejected, whereas SI child is like really, really clinging on to hope and faith, etc., that it's going to work out, and then FE inferior is smashed every time when there is some kind of rejection, because it's like a total emotional rejection. I don't value you. It basically destroys the INTP's concept of self-worth, and the only way they can cope with it is to go apathy mode, and then it's just as if they turn off all their emotions, kind of like the vampire emotion switch in the Vampire Diaries show that either Damon or Stefan would do based on like certain situations or dramas that they're going through on that show and whatnot. By the way, Damon is an ESTP and Stefan is an INFJ. There you have it. Yeah. But yeah, that's how I'd answer that question.
All right. I might do one more question, and then I might have to bail.
All right.
Will there be a C.S. Joseph .live sitcom in the future? Maybe centered around a waste disposal company.
Nice.
What do you say?
Because throwing people in the dumpster, right?
I thought it was a mafia reference. I was like, sure, if I get to eat cannoli.
Cannoli. Wow, Jab. Wow.
Well, that wasn't a euphemism for anything. I meant regular cream-filled cannoli.
Okay.
All right, we got another sitcom.
No to a sitcom.
Mr. Adolfo Guerrero. Advice for NFPs for attracting opposite gender. in general, not necessarily for relationships. So how can an NFP attract NFJ women? I guess.
Basically just be yourself. You have to understand something about relationships, folks, that the people that you naturally attract, even if you're not doing anything, will be naturally attracted to you, provided you're not immature. As long as your maturity level is high, people will just naturally gravitate towards you that are naturally compatible to you by default. And that's why typically people mostly get involved with compatible relationships. From a relationship standpoint, people that get into unhealthy codependent relationships or relationships with their opposites, that's usually because they had some external influence affecting them, like a dogma from a religion, or like, for example, don't have sex until you're married. That whole doctrine, which I completely reject 100%, because I do not actually maintain that is biblical, but it's just a doctrine created by the Catholic Church for whatever reason remains unknown, but I have some theories about that, theories that I will not talk about on the stream. Regarding that, like, if you have an SI user who does not have sex before marriage at all, they have no experience with which to compare to, so they are at huge risk of being in an SI plus SI relationship in their marriage, and then having that only sexual relationship potentially for the rest of their life, and by nature alone they could be unfulfilled even though they think they're fulfilled, because that's all they've ever known. You see what I'm saying? That's a problem. This is where ignorance is not bliss, and yet everyone assumes it is. Ignorance is stupid. Like, I'm sorry, it's stupid. So I would recommend when you're dealing with dogma that puts you in those situations in life, maybe you should get some critical thinking and figure that out. And if you can't get critical thinking, do research and comparisons before you make a decision, or find someone who has critical thinking and ask them, basically. And that's how I would answer that question.
All right, let's just go on the Patreon. We've got a couple more Patreon questions, I think.
Well, hold on. Jared Vaughn says fornication and adultery are condemned by the Bible. Adultery as defined in the Gospels, actually only women could commit it based on the original definition of adultery when the Gospels were actually written. So that's not necessarily true. And I completely reject the Apostle Paul anyway. And I do not consider that part the infallible holy word of God at all. I'm sorry, I don't. And because I reject the Apostle Paul, not interested in anything that he has to say, and I'm not going to live my life by the Apostle Paul at all. And if he talks about fornication, that's his business. But at best, the Apostle Paul is words of wisdom and not gospel truth. Because for some reason, if Paul's words were gospel truth, then women couldn't have leadership over men, and they'd have to dress a certain way and only speak at certain times while in church. And even church itself is actually a pagan construct. You should definitely, anyone should read the book Pagan Christianity by Frank Viola and actually fact check me when I say that as my source on that. So yeah, definitely not something I recommend.
Okay, so do you want to go on to the Patreon questions now? We'll quickly wrap these up, and then I might have to head off, and then you can go do some YouTube questions if you want to keep going.
Let's see here. Yeah, I could give it a little bit more. Yeah.
All right. You have just mentioned when talking about SI Demon. Sorry, you have just mentioned compatibility when talking about SI Demon. So I wondered if that meant that we can lack capability. Sorry, I thought that said capacity for a second. Because of our lack of long-term memory. But I think it's definitely something that can be overcome.
So I wonder that meant that we can lack capability or compatibility. Is that what that is?
Maybe
is this a misspelling? Lack of long-term
I'm not sure. We can come back to that and just ask the next question.
Okay, well, Kana says, hi, Mighty, CS Jabba, hi, Chase. Do you have any advice for INFJs on how to fix their sleeping schedules? Yeah, get an SI user roommate. That's and go to bed when they go to bed. That's literally what I would recommend. That's basically the best way to do sleeping schedules. Or make sure that you have to be at a certain place and time in the morning, and that you will be letting people down if you're not there. That's the other way to control your sleeping patterns. So.
Yeah, also I can see Valentina has a gold role on Patreon, but she apparently can't post a question, so I just posted it there for her, so we can do that.
Okay.
And she asks, so I posted it there, so we can see it on stream. Who can I build a solid plan for my future with an ENFP? I know that I need to become... Oh, as an ENFP. Sorry.
Yeah, all good.
I know that I need to become independent and all that, but I feel like I need someone to give me reliability and structure. My ESFP dad is highly emotionally abusive and tries to ruin my future constantly. I'm in the process of getting out of his house and moving in with my mum, and I feel very unstable. I'm trying to drop out of high school, but I have to get a job first to drop out in the state of Washington. And I need to make sure I can get that.
Okay, so if she's in the state of Washington, I would not recommend dropping out of high school. I would recommend going through the Running Start program, because as soon as you're 16 years old, you can do the Running Start program, go to local community college, and then you're getting community college credits and high school credits simultaneously, and the state will pay for your schooling. You can graduate high school with an associate's degree and your diploma at the same time, and you have half of your college education paid for by the state, saving you a huge crap ton of money. And you have an associate's degree that even if you never decide to go after your bachelor's degree, it will still at least help you get higher paying jobs. And maybe you can start working for Amazon right away, for example, as a forklift driver, LOL. And, just as an example. But seriously, you're in the state of Washington, take advantage of the Running Start program. Seriously, do it. If not, independent is important, but as an ENFP, you just have to season 6 of the YouTube channel. That's what I would recommend you do. Do season 6, everything that says it says in season 6. Identify your needs. You need to not look at life as what do I want to do with my life. No. What do I need to do? What do I need to do in order to meet my needs? Basically. That's the point. Look at it that way. Needs, and then standards, and then boundaries, and then goals. Live your life appropriately to the 4 pillars of self-intimacy to develop self-respect, and then eventually you'll actually know what you want to do. That's how you should plan your life out. Otherwise, since you're in the state of Washington, which not very many people have the opportunity to get the Running Start program, do the Running Start program. You can get away with you can get away from your family. You're around way more mature people. Perhaps you could end up having a nice relationship with as a result of being around more mature people in your age group or slightly older than you at the community college, and it's being paid for by the state. And you get to wake up at regular hours and not at 6 a.m. every day, for example. And which is nice to be able to do that. And you also have way less homework, and you don't have to deal with stupid high school drama consistently. It's actually very nice to just be able to be, I'm 16 now, and now I'm in college, etc. That would be my recommendation for you, for sure, in that regard. Otherwise, watch season 6 on the YouTube channel. That's the best way I can answer that question. And
all right, Chase, you take over. I gotta head out. It was fun, guys. Talk to you later.
Yeah, I'll take over then. Just if there's a super chat, tell me, because I don't really have the ability to see them from here. Please. Okay, so thank you, Jab. Thought someone was going to write in that channel and they didn't. Okay. I think we'll just do some YouTube questions for now. So there's a YouTube question right there. As an INTJ, how can I value SE more? It's a pain in my ass. Valuing SE it just really is. It really comes down to experimentation. You just experiment with, I don't know, how you look, how you sense to other people, how you smell, how you sound, jokes, SE development for like as an INTJ, ESFP develop, become a comedian basically. Get some jokes together and just be like the funniest person in the room. INTJs are amazing at being hilarious. And there's actually, I forgot her name, but there's an INTJ comedian that I love. And I think she had a show on Netflix like 2 years ago or something like that. I don't remember. If someone knows that person, by all means say so in the chat and whatnot. But yeah, I have no idea on that front. I guess I can't remember. But really, it comes from trial and error and experiment with giving other people the best possible experience that they can. And if you remember giving someone a bad experience, obviously don't repeat that behavior. But also recognize like some SI users, like a lot of other people that are not SI users, may not respond as much because they're SE users. SE users don't really respond to fellow SE users that way, unless they have like SI Critic. Then they could potentially, and that's when you get into like ISPs. They may respond well to it. And but SI Nemesis not so much, but then SI users in general could, and it's just depending, like finding that right layer of sensitivity in terms of valuing SE more. But yeah, it just really takes time. The older you get, the more powerful your SE becomes, to the point where your SE is actually stronger than anyone else's. Like INJ's SE inferior becomes literally the strongest SE out of all the types, because when they're aspiring with their SE, no one can out-joke them. No one can out-dress them. No one can sound better than them. They are just absolutely just amazing in that regard. No one can out-show them. No one can show them up. It just can't happen when they're aspiring. But if they give into their fear and have that performance anxiety, it's going to be a problem. And that fear is basically false evidence appearing real instead of like faith. But it's really hard for NJs to have faith, so they need to have people who are faithful to them in their life. And then as a result of having those people who are faithful to them, they can actually borrow that person's faith through their extroverted sensing and then act faithful themselves, basically, which helps them get over their performance anxiety. And then with their aspirational SE, they end up outperforming everybody else, to the point where, quite frankly, even though I tell everyone no one's going to outwork me, SE inferior technically can outwork me when they're aspiring, because their performance is it just completely dominates everything. And that's why I like INJs so much. I love INJs for that reason, because SE inferior is the dopest. I absolutely love it, and I try to encourage them in any way possible they can aspire, for sure. Hey Nova, are you there? Are you there? I hope you are.
I'm here.
Awesome. Can you help me manage questions, please, so I don't like fall out of my chair trying to figure that out, if possible?
I'll do my best.
Cool. All right. Cool. So I don't know if we could see where Jab left off in the Discord Q&A channel. He usually saves the place, basically, that it is. Can you find that? Maybe I can find that. Let's see. Oh, okay. Booga's got a question in the Patreon Q&A channel. Is Liza Schlesinger the INTJ comedian? When I was typing before, no, and that's not the one, but thank you for bringing that up as a possible. And let's go questions. Okay, I see all
the last time he marked his place was November 29th, so I'm not sure if that's accurate.
Okay. Oh yeah, it is accurate. So yeah, so start with that question. Start with that question from Speedo Mosquito.
The pinned one?
Yep.
Okay. So Speedo Mosquito says, so I'm someone who previously previously typed as an INFP, but in recent months I've typed as an INTJ. After research I've conducted, I'm an INTJ, but I was wondering about what's a relationship between INTJs and INFPs.
They have a pretty good relationship. They are sexually compatible, but emotionally they're not compatible because they are at risk of out-selfishing each other. And that could cause the INTJ to perceive that the INFP is being disloyal, because it's like, if you were loyal to me, you wouldn't care about your feelings more than mine, which just ends up leading to stress of the INFP from a decision-making or an emotional standpoint. There's very little emotional connection there. Sexually, they're amazing in bed with each other, and they probably utilize sex as a way to solve all the problems in their relationship, but the emotional needs are not being met. So you have to take it with a grain of salt. If you're going with just a regular sexual relationship without the romantic or the emotional component to it, definitely go for it then. If you need that emotional component, then I don't recommend it, and I'd recommend you go for someone who's more compatible with your quadra and not or your cognitive functions at large from a romantic compatibility standpoint. This is why you have a lot of different cultures who, men have their wives, but then they have their girlfriends on the side, right? That's where that comes from. It's that cognitive situation where they marry someone for a romantic compatibility standpoint, but they're not in their top two highest compatibility, so it's not as amazing as it could be. And then they have higher sexually compatible types as like their girlfriends on the side, and you see that through various cultures. Like, I think that's prevalent in Italian culture, actually. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's just an example, etc.
Interesting. The next question in Discord we have from JamJust24. It sounds familiar. I'm not sure if you've answered it already. It says, how does the INFJ superego differ from the ISTJ superego?
Well, the ISTJ superego, which is basically the INFJ. It's basically like they want to lead people in the wrong direction. They want to lead people astray, is how the ISTJ superego goes. It's like leading people to their deaths, and those people don't even know. It's like the blind leading the blind, basically, is kind of how that works, and all those blind sheep and leading them to the slaughter, and they don't even know, right? That's the ISTJ demon way of doing things, because it's like it's an INFJ, basically. So that's how that goes. Otherwise, we just answered the INFJ superego earlier tonight. So.
Okay. Then we have Cortex asking, do you think gene editing will enable people to intentionally manipulate their functions and therefore choose their ego?
Hold on. Alright, can you ask that again? One more time?
Do you think gene editing will enable people to intentionally manipulate their functions and therefore choose their ego?
I'm going to say no, because I have no choice but to say no. Although we have not yet been able to see if there is a direct correlation between the human physical genome or even the epigenetic genome to see whether or not that affects the cognitive genome, which is what we have. The cognitive functions, all of that, all 16 types, all 8 cognitive functions with all the different combinations thereof. That's the entire total cognitive genome of the soul, basically, for mankind. We just don't know. I hope to have the answer to that question before I draw my last breath. I hope to have the answer to that question. But I don't know, so I can't comment on it for sure, other than just say no at this point. No until proven otherwise.
Fair enough. We have Evil Cheeb asking, what are the most glaring differences between TIFE and FITE for ENTP versus ENFP?
TIFE is all about about what other people value, and if they value this, then or if I think this, then it's going to cause people to have an emotional reaction to what I think. Whereas the ENFP is like, I'm going to have an emotional reaction based on what other people think. And that's the difference.
All right, simple enough. Let's see, from Funny Bear 465, they're asking, how does grief and loss affect the four sides of the mind? Does it put you in your shadow? He says, after he lost a brother in 2015, I was in a state of shock for a few months. I couldn't think straight, and individual memories for that period of time were very cloudy. Made rash decisions that they wouldn't have likely made in their ego, like getting into a relationship that wasn't so good for them. TLDR, what exactly does the loss of a loved one do to your mind cognitively? What transitions occur?
That's entirely too big of a question for me to answer. That's like an entire lecture that I would have to answer that question. And I don't exactly know entirely because pain of loss, it's actually very nurtural how it happens because people grieve differently based on who's actually present grieving with them. So it can actually end up becoming a very subjective answer, and it's very hard for me to actually provide an objective answer to that. So I'm going to technically have to pass on that question. I'm sorry. I really don't know enough without additional context to really be able to say. I need more input on that is what I'm saying.
All right. That is fair. I have a question from Monmon. It says, ISFJ would love to develop a friendship with her ESFP yoga teacher, but doesn't know how to make friends without extended one-on-one contact, which doesn't seem to be ESFP's thing. ISFJ also thinks it's a social faux pas to invite one's teacher to hang out. Advice?
Well, it may be a social faux pas. It happens. It really comes down to like the desire of the ESFP to actually go forward, and just do your duty and focus on making them feel good, and then telling them what you think, and help them. Like just help the ESFP, and then eventually they'll see that you're being loyal to them because you're helping them so much. And then they'll naturally, over time, as a result of you demonstrating your loyalty to them over and over and over, they're actually going to develop desire for you. And then they will initiate with you when the time comes because they realize they expect to have you around. And then when you're not around, it's like, oh, crap, they're not around anymore. What do I do? You know what I mean? And then they're actually going to seek you out because you're gone. So I would recommend learning the seductive style known as the coquette, which really benefits SFJs and NTPs the most as a quadra. You can learn about the coquette in The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene.
All right. From Wallstrom 90, they're saying, let's say that these personality types would be scientifically proven and accepted as common knowledge by everyone. Isn't there potential for negative abuse of the system? For example, job opening for managers, high TE users only, or I won't listen to your opinion because of being this type, etc. I can see this kind of assuming already sometimes on social MBTI platforms, so how can we prevent this negative side?
That negative side will always be there. We can't get away from it. I mean, the cat's out of the bag. It's there. How to deal with it, because we can't prevent it. How to deal with it is just educate people that appearances are not all that they seem. Like, people don't realize that INFJs are programming geniuses. They don't even realize. They assume that because they lack TE that they can't do computer programming. INFJs are amazing at computer programming. Some of the best, actually. The best programmers I've ever done work with, the best programmers that I've ever hired are INFJs. And ENFJs, too. They're amazing at it. But no one gives them the credit. And they're like, well, since you lack TE, you're obviously really bad at paperwork, so why would we want someone like you who's not as rational to be able to do that? When they realize that it's all about logic, and the purest forms of logic and type are TI child and TI inferior. So why would you not want that in your programming team? You see what I'm saying? The thing is, though, It's not as concrete. We just don't have concrete principles quite yet developed. The problem is tradition is the corpse of wisdom. And if we're going to be having traditional types do these roles, and roles can actually, like jobs, can actually evolve over time with their job descriptions, which means you can't discriminate like that. People are going to try to discriminate. So it needs to be a not a rule of positive liberties, but a rule of negative liberties. Kind of like the Constitution of the United States. It's just limiting the government, so you have to limit the system and not the person. Do not limit the person applying for the job, but you can't also really enforce the bias on the part of the person hiring. But ultimately, the onus is on them anyway because it's their company and they want their company successful, right? So if they're being foolish about it, the devil's in the details, and eventually they're going to find out the hard way, eventually, right? So based on that, what do? You just go out of your way to be the best you, essentially. And if it doesn't work out at that particular place, or if they're not going to hire you, move on to someone else who will. If they're utilizing type to not give you a job that you know you're really good at, and you've proven to them that you're good at it, and you have a really good track record and you enjoy it, that's on them. It's not on you, and you probably wouldn't want to be working for that company to begin with anyway. I suggest moving on to somebody else. Quite frankly, we should just have rules of no discrimination. If people apply, they apply. We shouldn't prevent people from applying, is my point. If they apply, and they treat them as such. If not, well, it happens. We shouldn't just freak out about it, So that's how I'd answer that question.
I agree. Someone's narrow-minded enough to not hire you because of your type. I wouldn't want to work for them either.
Yeah.
Taj Marie states there has been some research studies that show that memory skills can be acquired through training using mnemonic strategies, such as the method of LOCI, I believe, LOCI, where a person uses well-established memories of visual spatial routes. Supposedly, this training reshapes the network of the brain to improve memory. Do you think such training would help those in the case of having SI trickster or SI demon? How would this influence the shadow functions or the unconscious?
I love this question. Thank you, Taj Marie, for asking this question. Although it's not really based on. This question is not so. How do I frame the answer here? IQs, intelligence quotient. As you become more competent, your IQ goes up, right? It's the same kind of concept with sensing functions. If they're an extroverted sensor, how to optimize it, they need to surround themselves with totems. Totems, a note is a totem. A notebook is a totem. People are totems. Anything can be a totem. This glass of water could be a totem. It doesn't matter. This marker, this red marker, I guarantee you, is a totem. I remember all the times I've used it, right? Well, thing is, I have that stored in my introverted sensing, not extroverted sensing, so it doesn't matter as much to me, but an SE user would. So it just really depends. It really depends. Memory tools change based on the person. And we as a society, especially from an education standpoint, should make sure that the appropriate memory tools are made available. And we shouldn't judge each other based on a person's preference of memory tools. So based on that, it's really hard to be able to quantify that. But definitely there can be some improvement. But you shouldn't be improving SI trickster. You shouldn't be improving SI demon. You don't. Until you've improved SE inferior. If you want to improve SI demon, you need to focus on improving the function on its orbit, which is SE inferior. And by improving SE inferior, by default, you're improving SI demon, essentially. We'll talk about cognitive orbits a lot more in season 18 and how that works, basically. So.
Season 18 sounds like it'll be fun then.
It will be.
I have a user that's asking, how can I get an INFJ to deal with his bad posture and go to physiotherapy? He keeps neglecting his health problems, SI ? Which are already causing him problems, and will give him hell in the future. I believe he knows it but avoids it.
I'm not sure this person is an INFJ, because it'd be very easy to go after an INFJ. You just go up to the INFJ and they'll hate you for saying this, but you're like, hey man, you look fat and stupid. And telling that to an INFJ, it's like the most offensive thing you could ever say to an INFJ. And they'll hate you, and they'll probably just door slam you there, right there immediately after you've said that. But then they'll go off and realize, oh, they're right, and I'm going to do something about it, and then they're really motivated to make a change. So, direct criticism of the inferior function. If you need to know more about that, watch Season 16, Episode 4 in the playlist of the YouTube channel.
It's easy enough if you want someone to hate you. Generio says, I tend to struggle to communicate to someone who is emotionally driven. I often find myself in situations where the other person thinks I'm wrong because my opinion made them feel bad. This obviously leads to frustration on my behalf, as logic seems to not be a pervasive technique. How do you convey your viewpoint to an emotional bitch?
Is this like literally a question where it's like, I don't feel good about what you said, so you're automatically wrong? Is that literally what that is?
Basically, and this person has the type tag of an ISTP, so you can imagine how well that
Oh yeah. Deal with some STJs or some NFPs, likely. That poor ISTP. Yeah. If that's the case, you're wrong because... Like, that's literally what happens. NFPs are like, you're wrong just because. And it's like, well, because why? Just because. You know, it's like, because that's my mood. Because that's how I feel about it. You know what I mean? And it's like, wow, this is like the most annoying thing in the world. They do that. The only way you could get around that is just continue to criticize them. Burn the lies away by criticizing them with TI over and over and over until they can't handle you anymore and they run from you or they change. That's it. And if they decide to keep their ignorance as bliss NFP crap, well, that's on them. That's not on you. And if they want to run away and stick their head in the sand, as immature STJs and immature NFPs are known for doing, that's on them. That's not on you as the TI user. And don't feel bad if you're FE inferior and feeling guilt about it. But then the FE inferior is like, but they rejected me, and you know, I'm an emotional wreck because they rejected me because I have social anxiety, because I have FE inferior and I want people to value me. And then like, why are you seeking value from ignorant people then? Right? So don't do that. Like, seriously, don't do that. Move on. Find a mature NFP or a mature SCJ that would actually appreciate you and the truth that you tell them. ISTPs, please do this. Because then you're going to get the reward, that recognition that you so desire for what you're doing, and for the help that you're giving them, essentially. Because, you know, people just don't understand that when you burn the lies away, that you're actually helping them, right? Hellfire is literally truth. That's literally what hellfire is made out of, and it's there to burn the lies away. If you're breathing fire on them and you're burning the lies away, like then what's the issue? You know what I mean? So I am not bored with the videos recently. As Mike Hart says, I am exhausted. I have not slept very well over the last week because almost every night I've been up till 2 and 3 in the morning, with me getting up and going to work at 7:30 in the morning throughout. It's been a nightmarish week. So that's why I'm kind of like pretty off with that. So yes, I am low energy, and that is why. And I will be working on getting more energy as soon as we're done with the stream, for sure. So yes, thank you for saying tired first. So what's next, Nova?
Next is Muaboss saying they'd like to know where you think gay people fit into Jung's masculine and feminine archetypes. A good few modern interpretations are based on stereotypes.
Yeah, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, if we're talking about those archetypes and homosexual relationships, they still apply. If you're a member of the male gender, it's still you're going on in your two males in a homosexual relationship. You're going on that journey together, shoulder to shoulder, basically, and you're effectively merging your kingdoms into a super coalesced coalition kingdom, basically. That's how that works. It's a shoulder to shoulder approach. Although usually in a homosexual relationship, be it male or female homosexual relationship, one partner is the yin, the other partner is the yang, basically. The yin is the more pliable one, the yang is the more firm one, right? And that's just generally how the relationship goes, right? And sexually speaking, the yin would be on bottom and the yang would be on top, basically, as a result. So everything that I teach about like season 4, how do intimate relationships actually work, or season 13 that has to do with the Jungian archetypes of the mature masculine versus mature feminine. All of those apply to men and women regardless of homosexual relationships, but they still work under the context of homosexual relationships just fine. This is not me being like, I only have information or support heterosexual relationships only. No. My content applies to everybody. It really does, because homosexual relationships are definitely not something that is as much as like church or Christians or other various religious groups on the planet would say that homosexuality is a perversion, then my first question to them is, okay, so why is the male G-spot located where it is? Has anyone questioned that? And if they're claiming that God created everything, then God intentionally did that because he has NI hero, because he has all of the cognitive functions simultaneously at every level simultaneously. And since he does things intentionally, how did that work? So based on your own religious lore, where do you get off by saying that? Oh, that's right. That's when we get back into talking about the Apostle Paul again. Great. Anyway, next question.
All right. Sharky wants to know, how can I understand my anima more clearly?
How can I understand my anima more clearly? We're going to be doing... kicking off in season 17, we are going to be talking about the anima directly. We're actually going to be talking about each individual side of the mind and what it means and what it can do, basically, in the context of the various types, etc. There's going to be some additional series like, what is the subconscious of X type? How does it behave? You know what I mean? That's way down the road. But for now, we're just going to be generally speaking about the different sides of the mind and how they mechanically work and whatnot. But that's season 17. That is literally around the corner. I think the next episode might be a season 10, or it might be season 17, episode 1. I'm not sure yet, but it is coming. So stay tuned. We're working on it.
All right. Celestial has an interesting question here. She says, 23-year-old ENFP here, and my question is, as there is much controversy in the community right now, which MBTI theories, hypotheses are the most accurate, do you intend to work with any neuroscientists in the future? And are you interested in finding out, or do you already know where each cognitive function comes from in the brain?
I would like to work with neuroscientists, and the person who actually asked me this question put me into contact with one such neuroscientist at UC Davis. I believe that's accurate. So it's definitely something that's ongoing and definitely something I want to do. I have a lot of other really high priorities with this company, but it is on the table and not something that we're going to forget about. It's just, when do we get the time to be able to do that? Trying to stay on point and making sure that we are devoted into continuing in that direction for developing the science and making it relatively readily available to everyone and making it practical application and useful, but also to make it so It's just not pseudoscience anymore, that it literally becomes mainstream. Everyone applies this in their life, regardless of their language or nation or culture. And that's kind of where our goal is. And I'm sure the neuroscience approach, especially recreating Dario Nardi's work, except instead of relying on the MBTI test, it's actually with proper input, because each type of the person involved is verified before they begin the experiment. So we can do that now, luckily, because we have the type grid. So yeah, that's how I'd answer that question.
Okay. C asks, would it be harder to type someone who's depressed?
It could, because they could be cognitive transitioned in their depression. I was stuck in my INTJ shadow, such that when I actually took the MBTI test the very first time, I scored as INTJ. Then, I took it again because I scored INFJ. And I thought I was INTJ for so many years, until I met my ESTP mentor, who, in front of a customer in Bellevue, Washington, I was in the Copper building, which is the Copper skyscraper in downtown Bellevue, on I think the 20th floor, the 17th floor, I don't remember. But I was there, and we're in front of a customer doing some information technology work. And I started talking about the MBTI, and he was so triggered by everything that I was saying that he literally is like, stop, and started putting all my cognitive functions up on the whiteboard and reading my mail to me in front of these customers. And all of a sudden, all the 5 years in MBTI study that I had done just went out the window. Yeah, what a waste, right? Thank God the following day he agreed to be my mentor and teach me. And that started the whole process of unlearning what I had learned and learning things properly and going all the way. And then I got to study under the INFJ after him, which was exquisite. And I'm very thankful to have had that opportunity. So, but yeah, exquisite is in terms of the learning. That's and what I was being taught. That's what I mean there for context. Awesome. What's next?
Next we have Cookie asking how to develop your parent function, and he asks, please use both TE and FI as examples.
So you could watch and find out in season 16, episode 2, how to develop your parent function. It's basically the basic path that anyone would take to develop their maturity. If you want to become a more mature person, you need to develop your parent function. So I can't just believe what people say at face value. I actually have to go verify. That's TI parent. And it took me forever to actually discipline myself to actually verify what people say instead of not verifying what they say, because then I'd be led on by wild goose chases when I'm being social engineered by people, just like Benjamin Franklin was. And he ended up on the other side of the world as an ENTP because he didn't verify with his TI parent. Bad move, right? That's what happens when someone's immature and they're just leading with their hero and their child function instead of actually using their parent function. So you have to basically fail in life a little bit and feel pain of life before you recognize the need to have a parent function, before you start actually using it. Otherwise, the best way to do it is to take on responsibility. Do things against your mood for FI parent. Just because you're in the mood to do it, if it feels good, do it, man. Just because it feels good doesn't mean you should or would want to do it. Recognize what is the wiser decision, the more responsible decision. Be responsible with how you feel. Be responsible with your mood. Do not become irresponsible with your mood and just allow your mood to rule your life. Seriously. There's one thing I could say about FI parents that I absolutely couldn't stand, especially from my marriage, because I used to be married to an FI parent, is that her mood was the most important thing in the world. And if I did anything to upset her mood, it was absolutely disastrous. So no good, not something I recommend. Extroverted thinking. To develop extroverted thinking, parents read, and do a lot of research and have mastery over knowledge and reference points. If you're a TE parent and you don't have basically your own kind of library in your own home, what are you doing? Seriously, what are you doing? If you don't have an Amazon Prime account or an Audible account or something, what are you doing? You need to start reading immediately. And as much as I say it's important that TE child reads more than anyone else, is because they won't survive unless they do. But TE parent, you're being irresponsible if you're not constantly reading. you're being irresponsible. So, like, of course, a lot of the TE parents I know, books everywhere. And ISTJs and INTJs could, like, master any skill based on what they read. And I'm so marveled by the INTJ ability to master any skill. I love it. And I just kind of want to be like them in that regard. Luckily, I have INTJ shadow, but I just still need to be shown the ropes and use their FI child to kind of prioritize things that I should look at first instead of, like, boiling the ocean per se and me doing things from there. Whereas ISTJs, they just store knowledge because they're like the ultimate library of Alexandria, essentially, as I have said before, and they just remember everything. And you just go to them and ask them a question, and they'll tell you. What are your questions 3, basically? I mean, literally, ISTJs can become that genie in a bottle of knowledge. And it's like, I'll answer any of your questions, and it will be accurate because I know everything. Like, out of all the types, the type that can get closest to knowing everything, at least during the epoch or the zeitgeist of their life, is the ISTJ type. Whereas INTJs utilize knowledge to gain mastery in skills. And skilled INTJs are the greatest thing in the world, and I love it because I wish I had more skills and they can help develop me and expand my horizons so that I become more skilled and more effective myself, which is ultimately what I want because I feel it is my duty to do so, and I must do my duty, essentially. So yeah, that's how I would answer that question. We're basically... Michael Pierce made a video saying he thinks Yoda is ISTP. What do you think about that? I've never actually typed Yoda. There's a good chance he's an ISTP, but I really have no idea. He definitely does come off STP NFJ Quadra for sure. Definitely seems very logical, especially with his speech. So that's a possibility. Anyway, we're at 2 hours. I think, Nova, do we have anything else? Are we missing something?
We have one question in the Patreon queue left from Valentina.
Let's do that. Let's do that one.
All right. She says, I know that you said the NTP SFJ Quadra tend to be coquettes.
Yes.
What seductive type tend to go with which personality types?
We will be talking about art of seduction and the seductive styles and the anti-seductive styles with all of the types in a future lecture series. And I believe that will be a Patreon-only lecture series. It's coming, and I think that'll be coming right after the 5 Love Languages season as well. So it's already in the schedule. It's coming. Thank you for asking. But yes, it is coming for sure.
Awesome, so that about wraps it up. We got all our Patreon questions. We didn't get any super chats while I was hosting, I don't think.
Awesome. That's dope. All right, cool. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for excusing Jab. He had some responsibilities to take care of, and thank you for being with us for 2 hours. We appreciate it. Welcome to my new studio, because I had to rebuild it, and I know the lighting sucks, as someone pointed out like 15 minutes into the stream, but it is what it is. I live in a very small square footage apartment, and I can't afford to get anything higher because I live in the freaking Bay Area, where for some reason we want to charge thousands of dollars for 1-bedroom apartments in the Bay Area, California, for some reason. And it's not my first choice, but given this place is the only place with an air conditioner, I kind of had to go with it. You know what I'm saying? So square footage is limited in exchange for me having an air conditioner. Awesome. Because it gets really hot in California. Okay. But any way that we can increase or help our lighting, Nova and Jab have been present to assist me with that, and we're getting that figured out. Baby steps. But we are listening to you as our audience, and we will we will continue to increase the quality. Hopefully the audio and the visual is a lot better. And also, if you're like an artist or would like something of yours like featured around here, I mean, we have this nice painting from Raylan, who is a member of our audience. She painted it for me because I asked her to paint the Black Lotus, and The Black Lotus is a very important metaphysical symbol and concept to me personally. It comes from Magic the Gathering too, which is also pretty dope. And it's awesome. It's like they're in the bayou in Louisiana, growing in the bayou at night in the mist. It's pretty awesome. But if you have anything like that, and you want it to be like on this table or whatever, or hung up, just send it, and we'll see what we can do. If you want to have your work represented, because I really like art. I like art a lot. It's one of my favorite things. I also love music. Art and music is just like one of my major passions, and I am absolutely obsessed with violin. And if anyone would like to help me create an intro or an outro for my show, and if you get some violin in there, maybe some piano, and maybe some dubstep, chill step or something, that would be dope. And have it custom what we're doing, and I'm sure we'd use it for plenty a long time, because that would be awesome to have that. So, but hey, just saying, never not ask, I guess. But great. Thank you all for coming. Our next live stream may be Tuesday night, but it may be postponed to Thursday. I don't know yet. Just depends what the schedule is. So we have that, the next How to Type session. I don't know who it is yet. We're still discussing that. And then we have the next Q&A session on the Sunday. So great. That's everything. Nova, do you want to say anything before we go here?
Thank you all. I apologize. I'm not Ms. Java, but we will have a regular scheduled Java for the next stream.
Yeah, a regular scheduled Java, and hopefully an actual streaming schedule that's posted and adhered to. Hopefully, as my life becomes less chaotic as time goes on. Hopefully. So, anyway, thank you all, and we'll see you on Q&A next.